Hello everyone and welcome. This is part 2 of turkey hunting specifically for spring gobbler. And today I'm going to go over some of the gear that I like to use and kind of make some recommendations to you about how to get ready for the upcoming turkey season, how to get ready for to hunt, and what I think that you should really buy, what I think that a serious turkey hunter needs, and some things that I have that I really like and I think are nice to have, but not necessarily a necessity to hunt with and to be successful in the woods. We're not gonna talk a whole lot. I mentioned in my last video I'm a huge fan of Woodhaven calls. I think that's going to be pretty apparent when I start to explain some of this stuff. But we'll start with the very basics in the beginner, and then we'll move up, right? So like, what should you have if you're looking at taking other people? If you want to try and guide hunt, that kind of thing, right? Like from the very basics, like what you should have to get by, and about what it's going to cost, with like specific examples, and then all the way up to, hey, I'm a really serious hunter. I might want to start taking people in the future. And again, like this is just my setup, right? So it's not an end all be all. You must own these things, but for me, they're really helpful things to own, and things that I have purchased for very specific reasons and have enjoyed for very specific reasons. And I'm gonna have to get up and walk around and go get them. I don't really edit a whole lot, and I do want to apologize for that. For anybody who it bothers, but I kind of have everything, at least in the very near vicinity to me, so I shouldn't be gone for too long. So we're gonna start with like the bare bones basic, right? So this is a box call, right? This is a Woodhaven mahogany hen. It is I believe it is a mahogany bottom with a red heartwood top, and it has just an absolutely beautiful sound to it. It is really loud, right? So if you're going to use a box call, that's something you need to be prepared for. What you just saw at the beginning was me attempting to use it quietly, and it doesn't work. They don't sound good when you try and use a box call quietly. They really sing a whole lot, which is great. They're wonderful for windy days. But why I talk about this first is anybody can use a box call. I mean, it takes very little to get really good yelps and purrs and clucks and cuts, a fly down call, a kiki run, anything like that. It's really not hard to get out of a box call, especially like when you cut it back to the real basics, right? So your clucks, your yelps, your purrs, your cutting, really easy to do with the box call. Kiki runs are a little bit more difficult, but you can in fact do them. But anybody can pick up a box call, and if you get a good box call, you can sound like a hen with 5 minutes of watching videos online to just understand what you need to sound like. The next thing that I have that I want to talk about is just a pot call, right? You don't have to get anything crazy. I have the spur anodized, and then taking care of these, the really important part is going to be your abrasive pads, right? These do not work well smooth. They just don't. So what I'd like to do is, every time I pull them out before I make any noise, I take it and I just kind of run it over and buff it. You don't have to go crazy. You don't have to absolutely destroy the surface of your call, but you want it just so that your striker or whatever you want to call it works well. And you want to hold it in your fingertips like such, and then it doesn't take a whole lot at all. Hold it at a little bit of an angle. I hold it like a pencil. Rest the palm against the outside and just. Right, and that's really about it. It's going to take a little bit of practice to find the sweet spot of a call. anyone can find it, right? You do not have to be a master to use one of those. They work really, really, really well. And they're a lot quieter than your box call. But if you are getting into it and you only have to buy one and you don't want to spend the time, please, 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 I would really recommend the box call. The next one I want to talk about is a tube call. And I am horrible at blowing these. I actually just bought it to see if I could actually figure it out. I'm horrible. I'm not even gonna waste your time. I have seen that these work very well for people that can learn how to use them. They have a lot of the same benefits as a mouth call, but you won't get the gag reflex with the tube call like you will a mouth call. The next thing I want to talk about, and I actually keep it in my pocket, is just the mouth call, right? Again, I like Woodhaven. I've had really good luck with them, and I don't think they're hard to use at all. You put it in, pulls it back, and I think it sounds really good. I just bought my first mouth call that I actually started trying to learn how to use them with like a week ago. It's Wednesday right now. It came in last Thursday. So in a week, you can actually sound kind of like a turkey. The next thing, I don't know how much you guys want to hunt or how far you want to go, but I would recommend either an owl hooter or a crow call. Now the crow call is significantly easier. And that's really about it, right? And they sound a lot like a crow. There's nothing fancy. You just blow them and it'll cause your gobblers to shot gobble and they'll respond to you and they'll let you know where they are. Now the owl calls are a lot harder to use. And if you get these, and by a lot harder, I mean they're different, right? Because your volume chamber on this is actually your hand. So when you get one, if you get it, it takes some getting used to. Especially to actually get the rhythm right. I think if you're just getting into it, what I would really, if you want to stalk hunt and you want to go after birds, I would get a crow call and a box call. The crow call is not going to alert them like a hen will to your presence as another turkey, and that's really important when you're coming up on them, right? Because if they're thinking a hen's coming and they see you coming, they're going to be looking in the direction of that call. Turkeys aren't stupid, right? And whereas if you just sound a crow call, they're not really going to be expecting a turkey to come through the woods. And a crow, they're all over the place, everywhere you go. So sounding a crow call, you know, it's not going to spook the woods. It's not really going to spook the birds too much. If you use an owl call, use the wrong call, you're really going to scare that bird. The other thing is please don't think you have to be an expert caller to call in birds. The technique you use is way more important than the sounds you make. And by that I mean understanding when to call, when not to call, and what calls to use at certain times is way more important than how much you actually sound like a bird. And what I mean by that is, you know, if you're making your clucks and you're just using clucks, make sure that you're using them at the right time, you know, and then be a little bit quieter on them maybe. Don't call, right? Because turkey hunting is kind of unnatural. It's not normal for toms, and I'm sure you guys know this. You've probably watched other videos, and I'm probably about the last one in the line, and you've probably already left by now, but toms don't go to hens in the woods. Hens go to toms. So you're already being unnatural. And so when you're doing that, it's really, really important. Less is more in the turkey woods. I mean, the calls sound great. You know, they're awesome to listen to. They're awesome to hear. it's a lot of fun. But just because that bird's responding over the ridge, well, that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to come. The less is more approach has always got me way more birds than the just keep hammering them. Because even though turkeys, they make noises in the woods, they you don't want to sound and act exactly like a hen, because in the woods a hen would go to the tom. So you got to do something a little bit different, right? And the nice thing is if you're on a budget, maybe get a crow call and a mouth call, because a really good mouth call is only 15 or 20 bucks, and you can really learn how to get good with a $15 mouth call. I mean, it's not hard. It doesn't take an extreme amount of effort to get good enough to call in a bird. And especially like Primo's hunting, they did a wonderful, I think it's like an 8 or a 9-part series on using a mouth call, start to finish. Never used one before, to how to actually call in birds and do the more complicated calls. So next thing is camo, right? This is a nothing special Nomad shirt, and I have the Nomad pants that go with it. They match because they were on clearance. Camo is really important when you're turkey hunting, but you don't have to go crazy with it. You don't need brand new camo every year. You're trying to just break up and not look like a person. And if you can do that with cheaper camo, it all works the same. It's all birds in the freezer. You don't have to spend obscene amounts of money. Now, what is important is your face mask. Right, again, you don't have to spend an obscene amount of money. I think that one was $5, but you have to break this up, because it doesn't matter how pretty you are, you don't look like a turkey. You just don't. And you're not gonna look like a turkey, and you don't want to look like a turkey. So you want to break your face up, because it looks completely different. And that's all you're shooting for. You want to break up your lines, your cheek lines, your face, everything like that. And that's why face paint was so popular. If you want to wear face paint, wear face paint. Just understand how to use it. Gloves, I would recommend wearing a set of gloves. Right? You can get camo gloves for really, really cheap. Again, you're trying to break up and not look like a person. The next thing is if you hunt, and so bare bones basic, right? We're talking, you just are getting into it. Mouth call or box call. Maybe it may be a crow call. Good camo, I would get a pop-up blind. You can use it for more than turkey. But having that blind is gonna do you more good than anything else, because turkeys see really, really well. And I don't care who you are. If you're sitting against a tree or whatever, you're not going to be able to sit perfectly still. No one can. Being in a blind is going to get more for you than any camo. It just is. I've killed more turkeys in a camouflage t-shirt and blue jeans because I was in a good blind that covered my legs, that I could see out of really well, than any other camo pattern I've ever worn in the woods. Camo does not matter that much if you're in a blind. Also, a blind is going to restrict your movement so you can move around, you can be comfortable. You're not restricted to sitting like a stick backed up against a tree or a log where you can't move, where you're on the ground. Crap's going to crawl on you, bugs are going to crawl on you, it's just going to happen. Now, if you're guide hunting, I would 100% tell you, get a blind, a pop-up blind, a fixed blind, whatever it is. Make the people you're taking comfortable. You're gonna get more birds that way. It's just like if you're gonna go out, you're gonna get more birds if you're comfortable, because you're gonna be able to stay out the whole time. You're not gonna be uncomfortable. You're not gonna be miserable. You're not gonna check your watch, right? And if you're guide hunting newer shooters, get yourself a Shockey stick. I'm gonna go get mine. So this is a shocky stick. Be sure you get the tall one. So they get up to 65 inches tall. They're a tripod if you get the good one, right? And I would get the tripod. And the reason why is you just undo the base, you spread out the legs, and now, even in a blind, you can set it up and you can rest your gun on your shocky stick. And they make, you know, a bunch of people make them where you can get a 2-point whatever to rest your gun on, and that's great, right? Like if you want that, for sure, 100%. The more still you can be, the more birds you're gonna kill. That's just that's the nature of turkey hunting. Being in the right spot at the right time, not spooking the birds. But those tripods, those sticks, you know, they can hold up on that bird longer. It also allows you to have more muzzle control of that weapon, because then they can have it resting, and they can have it in their lap while the muzzle is sitting on the shocky stick or on a bipod or on a tripod, specifically a tripod, and it's not gonna move, right? And you can put your blind up, backed up against a hay bale if you're in a field. You can put it against trees, you can put it against whatever else, so that they're not gonna need to turn and shoot anything behind them. And then you kind of want to sit behind them a little bit, put them in front of you, so if they do turn left or right, you're not going to have that weapon pointed at you. However, you're going to increase the muzzle control of the weapon when they're not trying to fidget with it to get it comfortable. Because you can set that tripod up and you can actually put the weapon in your tripod, and there's no reason to touch it till a bird comes. And if you're hunting with new people, or you're teaching new people how to hunt, or you're guide hunting, those things are worth their weight in gold. The other thing I want to talk about are these guys, these little thermo cells. I know it's one of those gadget things, right? But man, they make the world of difference sitting in a turkey blind. When you don't have mosquitoes, you don't have gnats, you don't have flies, you don't have all kinds of bugs coming in the blind trying to bother you because you got one of these. Turkeys don't really care too much about smell. You're gonna start running into problems when you go to deer hunt. When you go to bear hunt, for sure, if you know you're deer or bear hunting. But they make the thermocell pads that smell like fresh dirt, and they actually work. You can use them. They won't spook deer too bad. Again, wind's gonna be more important for that. But if you are turkey hunting and you are a guide, or you are taking someone for the first time, the most important thing in order to make sure that they have a good time is to make sure that they're comfortable. One of these little thermocells is gonna do a whole lot to keep the bugs out of the blind. It's gonna do a whole lot to keep your customer, your buddy, your girlfriend happy. And that's gonna go a long way, especially towards getting them to come back, because hunting's hunting. You could be with the best guide in the entire world. Hunting's hunting, it's not killing. You're not necessarily gonna get something. And if they're comfortable, you have a lot higher of a chance of them wanting to come back, either to hunt with you or to hunt with somebody else, but to get them into the woods. Whereas, you know, if they're sitting there and they're swatting bugs, or sitting on the ground, crap's crawling all over them, they can't move, you gotta keep fussing at them for moving. It's not really an enjoyable experience for most people as their first time. Whereas you put them in a blind, you can move a little bit more, especially if you've got one of the really nice ones that you can see through all the way around, but you can't see inside of. Those are really nice. And you can get away with, you can move damn near as much as you want to in that blind. And it's really, really nice for those new people that are coming in, that they don't have to sit perfectly rigid up against a tree. You know, you can talk, they can move a little bit. You got the thermocell, there's not a million bugs that are trying to come in the blind, come all over the place. It's just a lot more enjoyable of an experience. Now, chairs, right? I use these little red camp chairs, right? This is actually a brand new one. They're like $10, and they are great. And they're red, again, out of a blind. Doesn't matter. Can't see in the blind, doesn't matter. Don't have to go crazy. They're cheap, they're affordable, they're a lot more comfortable than the ground. You can splurge, you can get a lot nicer of a chairs. I really would. If you're gonna sit somewhere and you know your spot's good and you know you're not gonna be moving, 100%. Get a more comfortable chair. Again, it all goes, especially if you are teaching someone or you're guiding someone, it all goes back to wanting to get them to come back into the woods, not just coming in for your first time and you know, leaving it. Because I've taken people out hunting before where I wasn't prepared. You know, it was a spur of the moment thing. Hey, can I come hunting with you? Yeah, absolutely. You got a license? Come on. You know, I got an extra gun. I got a crossbow, whatever. You'll be all right. And I was sitting in an open tree stand, right, a buddy stand. Didn't even have the burlap on it. I just put it up. And I was just sitting there. And I didn't move. And beautiful 12-pointer came walking right across the way. And that little kid, you know, he shot. He did miss. But his adrenaline was pumping, you know, everything was going. He missed because he jerked the trigger on the crossbow and he ended up shooting right underneath the deer. But because I wasn't prepared to take him, he never hunted again as far as I'm aware of, at least not with me. And it wasn't an enjoyable experience. You know, the blind didn't have a seat or a cushion on it. I mean, it was the blind that or the stand that I normally hunt out of. And I'm kind of used to that. You know, I've been hunting my whole life. And then it's all right for me, but again, I wasn't prepared to take someone else, and I wasn't prepared to think about what they needed or what they wanted as their first time. And you know, TV has kind of romanticized hunting, and it's also really important if you're taking someone to explain to them like conservation, how it works, give back. So if you're out hunting and you see trash, pick it up, right? Teach them that. Teach them the value of hunting ethically, because you're going to be their introduction into a whole new way of life, and you want to be a solid example. You want to be a good example. You want to be a hunter that they would be proud to be, and you don't want to ever fudge that line, not even a little bit. If you're a guide or if you are teaching someone, you have to be A squared by the book. It's very, very important. Don't ever fudge that line as somebody who somebody else is going to look up to and have an expectation of a code of conduct. Now let's talk decoys, right? So I've got a few, right? I really like the DSD decoys. They're cheaper than AVNX's. I think they look really, really good. They're really, really, really lifelike, and they are a little expensive, but you know, I really, really like them. So this is a hen, right? Nothing fancy. This is a feeding hen. And I just really, really love the way that these things look. These are solid. These aren't collapsible. And I think it's important to understand, like, and be realistic with yourself about what you're going to be able to use, what you can realistically carry. And the other thing is these decoy bags. Right, if you are going to go out into the woods during turkey season, during any season where they're going to be taking game, please, 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 put your decoys in a bag. There are a lot of people out there that don't share the same ethics and morals, that won't question to shoot a turkey, especially if you're hunting with a Jake or Tom decoy, and they might not even be able to legally hunt where you're at, but they might be out there anyway, and you don't want anything to happen that could put you in a position where somebody mistakes you for a game animal and shoots you. All right, I wear blaze orange during deer season, even if I don't have to, because there's a lot of people out there who are not intelligent, they're not paying attention, and they might be making bad shots or bad judgment calls, and I don't want there to be any ambiguity about what I am walking through the woods. One of the last things I want to talk about are these fold-up decoys, right? They're not great. They're not, you know, they're not perfect. They are cheap. They're affordable, and they work, right? Fold-up decoys are really, really, really important to have in your bag because they allow for portability. They allow for mobility. You know, you can take your fold-up decoy. You can walk out, you can fold it up, you can put it back in your same bag, and you can move your blind, you can move your spot. And really, the one I showed you was a hen. And I would always keep a fold-up hen on me, right? And I do keep a fold-up hen on me whenever I'm out turkey hunting. And the reason is you know, if there's a gobbler that's hung up on the next ridge over and I have permission to hunt that ridge, I might want to go after him And I can leave where I hunt and where I guide people, where we go out. I can leave my, I think I have 6 or 7 decoys and everything else. I can leave them there at the blind. I can leave the blind, and we can kind of make our way over towards where that gobbler might be hung up. And I can have that folding hen in my bag where it doesn't take up a whole lot of space. It's not huge like those hard fixed hens I just pulled out of the bag. And maybe we get to a spot where I can hear him and I know we're close. I know we're within 50 yards. And I can put that hen down, and then at that point we can move around and we can put ourselves in a good shooting spot where we put that hen out in the open for where we think we can get him to move. And then if he sees that hen, we have a lot higher of a likelihood of him coming in to get to that hen. And it doesn't take up a whole lot of space. Now, a breeding pair, if you're just gonna buy one set of decoys, I would get yourself a breeding pair and a fold-up hen. And the reason I would get a breeding pair is it's gonna work for 2/3 of the season, right? So your early season, it's gonna work fine. Your mid-season, when birds are starting to fight a little bit more, it's still gonna work. The end of the season is gonna get kind of iffy, but if you're gonna put out any kind of a male, a breeding pair with a small Jake, really gonna bring in most of your birds, at least your good sized ones. Excuse me. I've been working a lot this week, but at least a lot of your good sized ones closer to the end of the season. Now, a single hen is gonna go a long way, and you can use a single hen all season long. If you don't want to spend the money on a good breeding pair, because they're not cheap, get yourself a really good single hen, and you can put that single hen out in front of you. But then you got to be smart, right? You're not going to want to blow a bunch of different calls, because turkeys aren't stupid. We always kind of talked about that, and by that I mean I told you turkeys aren't stupid. So if you're using a mouth call and you're using a box call and you're switching over and you're using a slate call, and turkeys, they kind of scope some stuff out before they move in. And if they look over and they're like, well, there's just one hen there. Why in the world that doesn't make any sense? And that bird's gonna hang up because it's not gonna see what it should expect to see. And realistically, like, that makes sense because it's not what you have portrayed. So if you're gonna use a bunch of different calls, you should at least have a decoy for each call you're gonna use. And I know that sounds crazy, but I have 6 hens and 2 jakes that I take out. And then I got a folding jake, and I have another pop-up hen, folding hen that I carry with me, right? And that allows me to really get a lot of flexibility. And again, I set up usually the day before. I might not set my decoys on the sticks, but I'll put the sticks in the ground. I'll keep the decoys in my truck or in my car or whatever I'm driving. And then that morning I go out, I just got to put them on the sticks and I'm ready to go. And then I have the folders. They go in my backpack, piece of cake. I can move if we need to move, if they want to move. And that's the other thing too, man, is keep your clients happy. If they want to move, move. If they want to sit against a tree, let them sit against a tree. Give them some advice, give them good advice. Don't just blindly let them do whatever they want. But they're paying for the hunt. And that's what you got to understand. This is not your hunt. This is their hunt. It's just like if you're taking somebody, you're trying to teach them, have a conversation with them before you make it to the turkey woods. But you got to understand it's their hunt, and they might want to do things a certain way. It's just like when you're getting tattoos. Your tattoo, not the artist's tattoo. Be smart about it. And then you get those folders, if they want to move, you can move. So, grand summary, right? Do your research. Figure out what you want. And then kind of tailor your gear towards what you want. My recommendation would be as follows. To start, I would get a really good hen, solid decoy, a folder hen, a box call, maybe a crow call, and a mouth call. The things that you can get rid of out of that are the box call and the crow call. and your big solid hen. And you can get away with a lot with some camo, a pop-up blind, a mouth call, and a single folder hen. And realistically, if you're good and you're smart about how you set your decoys up, you can kill a lot of turkeys that way. I've seen a lot of people do it. The other thing that I carry with me is one of these guys, right? This is literally just a rabbit, right? And it's for coyotes. Because coyotes, you want to kill a coyote, turkey hunt. They just always seem to show up when you're turkey hunting. But, you know, I love my slate call. I love it. I love my pot call. I think it sounds great. It's a lot of fun. It's a traditional style of hunting. So you can get yourself a slate call too, and they're usually a little bit cheaper than a box call, at least for the good ones. And you can get away with that, you know. Get yourself a slate call, a solid hen, a pop-up hen, camo, and maybe a pop-up blind, or build yourself a blind. If you don't have money, some burlap from Walmart and some stakes, they go a long, 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 long way. Especially if you've got a piece of property that you know you're gonna hunt and you know where the birds are. So this is part 2, right? Part 1, I talked about scouting and how it's important. If you're not, you know, if you're hunting a piece of property, you know, there is nothing wrong with putting a blind up that it's not gonna move all year. The animals are gonna get used to it. You know, you can get a folding saw and some burlap, and you can make a heck of a nice blind for like maybe $30, maybe, and it's gonna last. And you don't have to go crazy. If you are just getting into this, I would even tell you don't spend any money. You know, find a buddy, ask somebody else to take you. Hell, pay somebody to take you your first time. That way, if you don't like it, you're not out a whole lot, because you use their decoys, you get the experience, you talk to them, you figure out how to call, why they're calling the way they're calling, and you see what works, right? And then you get a lot of experience that way, and you pay for it. I mean, a lot of these turkey hunts ain't cheap, but it's a whole lot cheaper than buying decoys. I can promise you that. I mean, I can absolutely guarantee that decoys are not cheap at all. And then the land to hunt on, the scouting's not cheap, calls aren't cheap. But the most bang for your buck is really gonna come out of a mouth call. A mouth call, a folding hen decoy, and then semi-decent camouflage. And you can kill some turkeys. You really can. Just be smart about it. Do your scouting. Again, this is part 2. I hope you guys found this helpful. If you didn't, well, I apologize that I wasted a half hour of your life. If you did, please like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. Thanks, y'all.